Welcome to Strain on the Game, the podcast that reveals what it really takes to keep elite footballers performing at the highest level. I'm Stephen Warnock, former Premier League player, joined by physical performance expert Adrian. From training ground truths to the financial impact of fitness, we discuss the often overlooked challenges behind the beautiful game.
Stephen, good to see your face, mate. I haven't actually seen you for a while, have you? Even though listeners to this podcast will think we see each other every week, we actually recorded the previous podcasts a month ago, and you've been on your travels since then. So what have you been up to, mate?
Yeah, I think when last time I spoke to you was when we interviewed Ryan Nelson. I was out in Utah when we actually did that podcast, and we were working out in Utah. I say working. I was a special guest at an academy tournament out there. Made an appearance to hand out medals and things like that, which was great. And then disappeared and went to the other side of the world. Went to Australia to see Kelly's brother, who's now moved there from New Zealand. So Kelly's our producer, who's my fiance, for those who don't know. So we went to Sydney for a couple of weeks, and then I stopped off in Kuala Lumpur on the way home to do a little bit of work, which was incredible. So I've had I think about just over 3 weeks away, which is, it was a nice break, mate. A really nice break. A little bit.
How was Sydney? I was. You weren't with us at Blackburn when we went to Sydney on a ridiculous long pre-season tour. I think you.
No, I missed that. I think you went the summer after I went, didn't I?
Yeah, well, we were waiting for you to go so we could get out there, because we knew you'd never been.
Yeah, I loved it. It was great.
Yeah.
Just the outdoor living suits me. I love outdoor living. I just love being in shorts and t-shirt all the time and not caring what, like waking up and just thinking it's going to be warm. And
what is it? Their late summer out there, or their autumn, or what time period? Early autumn.
It was coming into the end of summer,
right,
which was like still 35 degrees and getting burnt to a crisp, and not realizing that factor 50 doesn't even work out there. Then you need like factor 70. I was putting emulsion on in the end. I was like, this is absolutely ridiculous. It was insane. I just kept on burning all the time. But
brilliant.
I'd rather burn than be cold.
Brilliant. Yeah. I mean, certainly it's the right time of year to go, isn't it, when you're in England? But we went out in July, when it was like the middle of winter, and we went. I don't know if you went to Bondi, but we had. Well, so we had that run up and down Bondi Beach, which was partially training session, partially media appearance. And of course we had Mr. Australia, Brett Emerton, the whole time. What a shit country, boys. Middle of winter, we've got our shirts off. What a shit country. Emo doing his bit for the Australian Tourist Board all the time.
I can imagine, yeah.
But
brilliant. What a guy.
Well, I'm really looking forward to speaking to today's guest. It's somebody that we've been wanting to get on the show for a while. But little bit of administrative duty before we get on, because we're now doing birthday shoutouts. All right.
We are, yeah.
We're now doing birthday shoutouts. So there's been 3 important birthdays that's happened this week. First of all, friend of the show and guest, Mr. Steve Heighway, 50th birthday. So he hasn't actually sent in a song request, so we're not going to do our tune for Steve. We're not playing the tune.
It's a shame, isn't it? Well, happy birthday, Steve. Happy 50th.
Happy birthday, Steve. And then heartbeat of Strain on the Game, the glue that holds this podcast together, producer Kelly, who's had a birthday this week as well. So
she has.
We'll give a golf clap for that. A little golf clap for that.
Brilliant.
And also, another behind-the-scenes contributor to this podcast, my good lady wife, Jamie, who's had her birthday last week. And I took her yesterday for a spa day, my first ever spa day.
Beautiful.
Well, yeah, it was. Yeah. The bad news is I quite enjoyed it, so I think Spa Adrian has been unlocked. So
Wow.
I made my debut on a massage because my previous one was Smudge at Villa. He was like, "Jump
Yeah,
on the
yeah.
table, I'll give you one." Mate, I jumped off the bed after about 2.5 seconds. I
Oh,
would have
having it.
beaten Mate, I would have beaten the high jump record. I'm like, "Get off me, I don't need that." But, uh, fortunately, the gentleman who gave me a massage yesterday was very gentle and very, very understanding. So I enjoyed that, so that was good.
Lovely. Well, happy birthday to Jamie as well.
Yeah, so Jamie's birthday present was I got a massage.
Great them birthdays, aren't they, when they
Oh,
work out like that?
best ever.
Magic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's get cracking into it. And
Let's get into it, yeah.
I'm actually going to do the introduction this week, if you don't mind.
Yeah, far
Good.
away.
So today's guest is somebody who needs absolutely no introduction. He came through Liverpool during one of the most competitive periods in the club's history, and he went on to build a long top-flight career across multiple Premier League clubs, earning himself a place in England's 2010 World Cup squad along the way. As a left back, he lived through the tactical and the physical evolution of that position, from traditional defender to modern high-speed attacking threat. He played under countless different managers. He was a leader in multiple dressing room environments. He experienced every type of pressure the game can throw at you, and he saw the game change physically, tactically, and culturally over nearly 2 decades. Since retiring, he's become one of the most recognisable voices in football around the world through his work with NBC, the BBC, and Sky. But more importantly, he's also spoken openly about the challenges that he faced after football, and he's been at the forefront of raising awareness about the issue of mental health in the game. Welcome to Strain on the Game, Mr. Stephen Warnock. Little
Hey.
dog. We need the sound effects to get like like a TFI Friday style applause.
Hey, have you ever thought about doing voiceovers?
Well, well, I couldn't be an actor with this face, could I? But I could
No, definitely
potentially
not.
do. Yeah.
But
Well,
voices, hey, lovely
voices.
that.
Yeah. Well, this is.
You can do all the intros now.
I'm a don't know about that. I did stumble over the word traditional, but there we go.
Yeah, yeah.
So there's the question is why, after 8 months of doing this podcast, we've decided to do an episode which is Meet the Presenters. And
Yeah,
the idea or the concept for this episode came out of the recent episodes that we've done with former players, Ryan Nelson and Luke Young. And they were brilliant. They were brilliant, brilliant episodes,
yes.
fascinating. But the feedback, and we get quite a lot of feedback formally and informally, people talking about us. The comments they were great, but we'd like to know a bit more about you, about your story. Why don't you tell us your story? And
Mm.
especially I'm based in the States now. So a lot of people know you through your work with NBC.
Yeah,
You pop up in the studio, reviewing the games. Everybody's mad keen on the Premier League over here, so that they're aware of you. But they're less familiar as time goes on with what you achieved as a player and what you did as a player and what your career looked like. So
yeah.
this is a real conversation that I'm looking forward to. So I want to go through chronologically. You started at Liverpool, your early career. You came through the academy there. Unbelievable club, world-renowned club, incredible people, incredible history. Just tell us a little bit about that time for you, about the people who were there and the people who helped you establish yourself as a player.
Yeah, I joined Liverpool at the age of 11, 10 or 11, roughly. So I was playing for a local team, and it was almost the best of our league. And we were playing against teams like Everton, Tranmere, Manchester United, Liverpool. And originally, I got picked up by Everton. Played a game against Everton, and straight away after the game, they asked me to go for a trial. And then we continued our games, and I played against Liverpool and never played really well in the game, I thought anyway. No one said anything after the game, so I thought, well, okay, Everton it is. And then on the way home, stopped off at the Big Arches, went to McDonald's on the way home, and in came one of the coaches, Hugh McCauley, and said, we missed you after the game. We tried to find you, but we want you to come in on trial. So I basically thought, well, I'm going there before Everton. So went on trial at Liverpool, managed to get myself in, and yeah, played in the academy from the age of sort of 10 or 11. I'm sure it was 10, up until the age of what I left at 24. But I was dead fortunate. I had some incredible coaches. I mean, we had the great Steve Heighway, arguably one of the greatest coaches, youth coaches that the game's had, and is probably the reason why a lot of coaches coach in the way that they do now. And Steve used to work out in Tampa. He was based out in Tampa, coaching kids, got approached by, I think it was Graham Souness was the manager at the time, and said, come back and set up our academy at Liverpool. And fortunately for me, I had a great relationship with Steve, but I had great coaches as well in Hugh McCauley, Dave Shannon, Robbie Johnson, Paul Lever. I mean, these guys were absolutely brilliant. John Owens, who looked after us at England youth level, but also worked at Liverpool as well. And yeah, it was amazing because I was a Liverpool fan. I'd grown up standing on the Kop, and it was just one of those where it was you just want to play for your boyhood team, and I was very fortunate that I was in a position to be able to do that.
So you're absolutely right, and the name Steve Heighway pops up, and coaches that I've worked with along the time, and his impact and his values, and the coaches that coach the way he plays, Ian Brunskill
Yeah.
and Mike Garrity. They talk all the time about the impact that he had. One of the things that they speak about is the values, and certainly when I think of Liverpool Football Club, they've got a strong values. What were the values that you learned at Liverpool, do you think, that helped you and helped shape your career?
Well, I think values only come from the people that are in the club. The club can have an identity in a way, but the identity comes from the coaches, and they have to represent the club in a certain way. And Steve was that identity. The one thing he would always say was, if you're not going to make it as a footballer, you're going to make it as a good person, and you're going to make it in another walk of life in some way, because the values that we instill into you, that hard work, dedication, sacrifice, you don't get anywhere without that. But he had a great way of bringing the best out of people, and he knew who were the best people to bring things out of. He'd always challenge you, never let you get above your station. He'd always bring you back down to earth very quickly. But he also had a soft side to him as well that probably a lot of players didn't see, but I saw firsthand when I was my first year in the academy, and I broke my leg. So we were playing Spurs away. I used to be a winger, and watched the ball come over my shoulder. Goalkeeper came out, clashed with the goalkeeper, broke my leg, and everyone else went home, and I was in a hospital in London. And then he was the one who came, picked me up, put me in the back of his car, drove me back to Liverpool, visited me pretty much every night, making sure that I was okay. And they're the small things that he used to do, which were just, yeah, he didn't have to do that. Didn't have
Yeah,
to go out of his way to
above
do
and
things like
beyond.
that.
Above and
Yeah,
beyond the call of
absolutely.
duty. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And then obviously from the academy, you broke into the first team, during what was really a competitive era for the club.
Yeah.
What was that dressing room like? Because give us some of the names that were in and around you, and you're a young lad coming from the academy. What was the dressing room like? What was training like for you?
Yeah. Well, firstly, before I even got into there, I just said then I broke my leg. I actually broke it 3 times. So I had a really tough spell from the age of 16 to 19, where I literally lived in a physio room for 3 years while everyone else is out on the grass. And when you talk about coaches and surrounding yourself with good people, I was very lucky that the support staff at Liverpool were brilliant in terms of those coaches, especially Hugh McCauley, Steve Heighway, and Dave Shannon, they would go above and beyond. And then the medical staff, we've had Dr. Steve McNally on the podcast, and he was hugely important for me. So when I actually went to Liverpool went with the first team, so the academy was separate for the first team. I was meant to join up with the first team the week after I broke my leg the first time. So I'd gone from being potentially a first team sort of in and around it at the age of 17, 16, 17, well, it would have been 16 at the time. And then it got put on hold for 3 years or 4 years. I think it was probably 4 years. But I remember going in and around the first team, and obviously we had like Stephen Gerrard, Michael Owen, but Stephen had been 2 years older than me at the academy anyway, so I knew him. That was absolutely fine. But we had the likes of Michael Owen, who was just phenomenal. But Michael had been at Lilleshall so much and had been catapulted into the first team, such was his quality. You had Sammy Hippier, Stefan Hencho. You had real experienced pros, Marcus Babbel, Gary McAllister, players who'd been around the block. And then you had the likes of Robbie Fowler as well, who was just a god at Liverpool. But you had these incredible players. So you're going into a changing room and thinking, how do I get in this team? And I think because I'd had so many setbacks, I was almost like, I was just enjoying the day-to-day of being there thinking, well, anything's a bonus rather than sitting in the physio room. But then you realise how hard it is to get in and the quality of the players. So my journey wasn't easy in any way. I had to go out on loan. My first loan move was played a reserve game for against Bradford City. On the coach on the way home, Hugh McCauley shouts me up and says, and bearing in mind I played centre mid that night, shouts me up and says, listen, Bradford have just been on the phone, like what they saw tonight. They want you to go on loan. Do you fancy it? And I was like, 100%, yeah. And that was an interesting one because I went to Bradford, turned up, and didn't realise how much of a mess the club was in. They'd just come out of administration. I think it was the year after they'd come down from the Premier League, and the club was a mess. But it made me grow up and realise this is what it can be like, and this is what football can be like, if you like. It's not all Liverpool Football Club and you're looked after like royalty. There's another side to football, and it almost made me realise that I want Liverpool. I want that next level because you realise what comes with it. I mean, interestingly, I remember my first day at Bradford, and I won't name the person, but I walked in and I was having a piss in the urinal, and he put a cup as I was pissing, had a sip of it, and was like, "You'll do for me." And I was like, what the fuck is going on here? And it was like, no way. It was insane. But some of the people who I got to meet and play with and travel, like I travelled in with Peter Atherton, who was just a hard, experienced pro who I learnt so much from. And I used to travel in with him in the car and just listening to him speak and the way he spoke about things. And luckily, I ended up working with Athers like years later at Wigan, and it went full circle. It was brilliant. But yeah, and then when I left Bradford, I went to Coventry the year after on a full season loan, where Gary McAllister was manager. So Gary had obviously left Liverpool, took the Coventry job, and then decided to take me with him. And then after Coventry, I think I got Player of the Season that year, and I was like so confident. But I thought I was going to sign for Coventry. I thought, do you know what? I'm happy here. I love it. Really enjoyed it. And then I got a phone call from Liverpool saying that they wanted to give me a 2-year deal, and the manager was changing and Rafa Benitez was coming in. And I thought, well, you've got to go back and give it a go.
And then you established yourself in that team, didn't you? In that Liverpool team, and then
to a certain degree, yeah, I was in and out. It was frustrating because you feel like you want to play more, but it's very difficult when you're at a club like Liverpool. Is you've got competition for places and it's tough to get in. But I played for Liverpool and that was my dream. But it was very difficult. I mean, people often talk about players signing for big clubs now, and they're like, "Oh, you'll just fit in." You're like, it's not as easy as that. There's a massive weight of expectation on your shoulders when you play for Liverpool. You have to perform every week, and you're constantly under the microscope. And I didn't realise that from going from youth football into first team football, just how big the club was.
Did you feel that being a player who come through the academy, some of the best players at that in that time had come through the academy? He's mentioned two of them, Michael Owen and Steven Gerrard. Some of the
Robbie Fowler,
Robbie Fowler, Jamie Carragher, all of those guys
yeah,
were in and
David
around it
Tomo,
at the
yeah, yeah.
time. In my experience with other clubs, that sometimes the players that come through the academy into the first team are almost treated differently to the big name players that have been bought in. And I look at Liverpool and I think of some of those names we've just said, and I think it must be different there. Is that, how was that as a young lad? Did you feel coming through the academy system that perhaps you were treated a little bit more harshly at times, and you were open to criticism more than the players that had come in for big money, or was that not the case?
No, I think you're given more leeway. I think because the fans want you to do well, they'd rather have a local lad in the team who's capable than bringing someone else in, and I think that's for every team. I think that's for Man United, Chelsea, Arsenal. If they see a local lad running around that pitch and he's good enough, I think they're made up, and I think they'll give you a little bit more time. Um, the hard thing is that it's the manager and the staff who don't give you that. They think it's an easy way out to drop you, to leave you out because you're a young lad and you won't really say too much, and they know you're not as experienced, so you're not gonna lean on that and sort of fight your corner. So I think that's at every club as well. So I think that's part and parcel of it. But um, yeah, I think that there is a difference with younger players, where yeah, I think the fans are they're wanting you to do well. They're fighting your corner. They're desperate for you to do well. So you feel that as well.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. In every club I've been to, it's been the managers and the staff find it easier to criticise the young players from the academy than the big
Yeah,
ones, but the fans definitely want the local heroes to do well. And
yeah.
then what being a fan, it must have been incredibly difficult, or was it an incredibly difficult decision to leave Liverpool? What prompted you to leave and move to Blackburn?
Lack of game time. Feeling that I should have played more. I found the rotation tough as well because I'd gone to Coventry and I played. I think I played something like 45 games that season. But I pretty much knew I was playing week in, week out, and I love that training, knowing you were going to play. And when I was at Liverpool, I just felt that whenever I trained, I didn't know what was coming at the end of the week. And as much as you prepare, and then you get pissed off, and then you sort of lose your way a little bit. It's completely changed now, where there is more rotation.
Mm.
I think I was right at the beginning of that, where I think it was probably Claudio Ranieri bought it in and Rafa Benitez did bring it as well, where they liked to rotate and they wanted to keep players fresh, whereas we didn't get bought up in that era, so it's completely different. Um, Plus, I'd had a bit of a few run-ins with Rafa, about a few things that had gone on where he'd put me in squads or left me out of squads, and um, we didn't see eye to eye on a few things. And then I just got a phone call from my agent one day and just said, "Listen, Mark Hughes wants you at Blackburn. There's a deal to be done." Originally, Lucas Neal was meant to be part of the swap deal, and then Lucas got offered a ridiculous deal at West Ham, and he felt financially that that deal was better. So he decided to go to West Ham, but my deal was still on. And then I was in the car on the way to Blackburn, and this was in the summer of, I want to say, '06, '05, '06, maybe. And I was on my way there, and then got a phone call from the agent saying the deal's off. The club want you to stay. So I turned up the next day, and this was on transfer deadline day, by the way. So I turned up, transfer window shut, and I was in the medical room, and Rafa just looked at me and said, "What are you still doing here?" And I just thought, for fuck's sake. So I just went, "What do you mean?" And he said, "You were going to Blackburn." And then it transpired that the owner, David Moores, who's now passed away, sadly, a lovely fella, and Rick Parry, because I was a local lad, they wanted me to stay because they thought I could get in the team and stay in the team. And I was just like, "That's not your decision to make.
Yeah.
That's that's the manager's. The manager controls the team." And yeah, so I basically got on the phone to my agent straight away and said, "Listen, I need to get out. He doesn't want me here. I don't want to be here." So it actually ended up being an easier decision. And then I ended up going in the January to Blackburn. Fortunately, they still wanted me because you know what transfers are like.
Yeah.
Sometimes they find someone else who's maybe cheaper or a better player, and they go, "No, we've looked in a different direction now. We've been messed about by your club." But fortunately for me, um, yeah, I had a friend in my camp, if you like, Craig Bellamy, who's now the Wales manager. He spoke to Mark Hughes and said, "You've got to get him in. He's a great person, trainer, professional. He'll be a great addition to Blackburn." So I'm always indebted to Bellas for speaking up for me and putting a word in with Mark Hughes.
It's unusual that about Bellas. He normally keeps himself to himself and doesn't express his opinion very much, does he?
Yeah, I love Bellas. He's great.
Yeah, he was brilliant. He was brilliant. I mean, at Newcastle, I had the odd little bit of. I was academy fitness coach at the time, so I didn't have a lot to do with him, but bits and pieces with him, and he was brilliant. He was brilliant.
He just
So
gives a shit, doesn't he?
he cares so much, doesn't he? He cares so
Yeah,
much about the game,
just
and
loves it.
you know, a lot of people take him the wrong way, I think, but he does help himself in the way that he goes around things sometimes. But his heart is in the right place. But well, we'll have to see if we can get Bellas on, see if we can.
Oh, imagine that. Be dynamite, wouldn't it?
It would have to be after the watershed with the language, I should think.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, so you've left Liverpool, you went to Blackburn, and you were at Blackburn for 3 years. Then you went to Villa, where of course this is starting to turn into This Is Your Life, this, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I had a quick reckon up, and that was the time that we came together, Blackburn, and then again at Villa. 7 years, you had 7 different managers, not including caretakers. And I just want to sort of touch on that sort of that part of football which we see more and more now, that inconsistency in managers, that inconsistency in coaching.
Yeah.
Can you describe to the people listening to this podcast as a player, how difficult is it to adapt to new managers coming in with new systems, and how did that affect you professionally, but also how did it affect you personally?
Yeah, it's very difficult because it's a job interview, and the biggest thing that people have to remember is though no matter what goes on in football, everything is about an opinion. So one manager's opinion might be different than another's, and what he thinks your biggest strengths are, whether he thinks you're a good player, whether he wants to keep you. Now, I signed at Blackburn under Mark Hughes and absolutely loved it. I thought it was brilliant, so well organised. The training was tough. It pushed me. I felt wanted because they'd signed me, Mark Hughes and his staff. So I felt 10 feet tall walking through the door. And then he got the call from Manchester City, and it was like, okay, so where are we going to go from here? And Paul Ince is given the job. Now, luckily for me, I'd known Paul Ince from Liverpool when I was a youngster. I'd been in and around, and he knew of me anyway. So it was the relationship there was good, and I knew I was still wanted at the football club. So that was great. But things didn't work out for Paul in the way that the form went for Blackburn and the way things panned out. And then Big Sam came in, and I think I've spoke about this before. I wasn't overly excited about Sam's appointment until I met him, and suddenly you've got a manager who you're just like, wow, this is brilliant. This is exactly what you want. It was very similar to Mark Hughes in terms of how meticulous everything was, the training, everything was looked at. But he had he had a different personality to Mark Hughes. Mark Hughes was almost like the aura of him, and you sort of feared him a little bit, whereas Sam you feared, but you knew you could have a good laugh with as well, and he had a great personality. And I think Mark Hughes had that as well, but he kept it to himself a little bit more. So Sam was a little bit warmer. Um, so I was really enjoying my football, and then I get a phone call from my agent to say that Aston Villa are interested. And by this point, I was already in and around the England setup. I'd been called up a few times with Blackburn and spoke to Fabio Capello, or he spoke to me and just said, if I wanted to continue to be called up and potentially go to the World Cup, then I needed to play for a team that was fighting higher in the league and potentially fighting for Champions League places. And Aston Villa came in for me, and I thought it was a good opportunity. Martin O'Neill was obviously doing good things at the football club. And I went into Villa, and it was completely the opposite to what I was used to. And it was five-a-sides every day. It was no warm-ups, no physical stuff, no very little gym work. And I just remember thinking, what the fuck is going on here?
So
There's
that
and
structure and that
by the way, you weren't there.
yeah,
So,
I was
yeah,
still at yeah. So that structure and that meticulous attention to detail
yeah, which
and
I
that
need in my life had gone.
which you thrive under is
Yeah,
suddenly gone. It's
yeah,
suddenly not there anymore.
and I
Um,
really struggled. I
right.
struggled massively to deal with it, and I remember speaking to all the lads and saying, like, "You just gotta get on with it." And to be honest with you, we had a great changing room and a great set of players who were able to deal with it, and the camaraderie around the changing room was great, but then the later on in the season you get, and the less time you're in, and the more unfit you're becoming, it starts to affect form, and it starts to affect what's going on in the changing room, and because you start losing games, so that buzz around the place isn't there anymore. So yeah, I'd gone from a very structured manager to a manager who basically just trusted his players to do what they thought was right. And it was very much a Brian Clough attitude, because Martin O'Neill had come through or been a player at Nottingham Forest, and that was that sort of reverse psychology. And I don't know if I've ever told you this, but I remember I've spoke about it before, so I don't mind speaking about it. But he does a review in and around Christmas time. And I remember walking into his office and Gabby up on the hall just saying, like, don't listen to a word he says. And I was thinking, what's he on about here? And I didn't know this was a half season review. I'd just had a shout, Gaffer wants to see you. And then when I walk in, there's like him and his staff sat there. And it was like, how do you think you've done this so far this season? And I was like, yeah, I've done well. Like, really pleased. And he was like, well, let me tell you how it's really gone. And he absolutely crucified me. And I remember thinking, fucking hell. So I remember sat there saying, like, you do realize, like, you fucking lost me completely here, because I didn't need that. I didn't
Yeah.
need this reverse psychology of, like, oh, you can do this, I'll prove you wrong. I was like, no, 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 I'm playing well. I fucking know I'm playing well. Keep
Right.
me going at that. And he just crucified me. And I walked out and I walked into the change rooms and I said to the lads, like, what a fucking idiot. Like, what is that all about? And I just, my form after that just plummeted. And I just like, and I didn't have any respect for him because of it. He just lost me completely. I was like, I'm not about that whatsoever. Um, but yeah, a very strange manager. And then we had a few managers after that, because Martin left with 3 days before the season was due to start the following season. He walked out because obviously James Milner left. He didn't feel like he was getting the money that he wanted to reinvest into the squad. He bought Stephen Ireland in, but he wanted more. And Randy Lerner at the time was like pulling the money back. And I think he thought, well, I've got a bit more, I've got a bit of money back in the coffers there that I've invested. So Martin left, and then we had Kev McDonald for a bit, who Kev was great, worked as hard. He gave us what we needed. But yeah, we had a heavy defeat away at Newcastle. We got beat, incredible. We were battering Newcastle. John Carew missed a penalty, and then we got beat 6-0.
Was that
And
last game of the season or towards the end
no,
of the
no, 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 it was the start of the season after, probably about 7 or 8 games in, if that,
Right.
and
Yeah,
we got beat 6-0. And honestly, how we got beat after the way we started the game, if John Carew scores the pen, we probably beat Newcastle 6-0, but the game just changed completely. Kev lost his job, and then, I actually played in a testimonial, I think it was Carragher's, at Anfield in the international break, so that would have been September, and when I was there, Gerard Houllier pulled me and said, like, "What's it like at Villa?" He's like, "I've got the job." And I'd never, like, spoke to him really when he was at Liverpool. He ignored me. He never spoke to me, so I was thinking, "Fucking hell, this is gonna be hard." Um, anyway, came in, I played the first few games, and then, we had a disagreement because I lived in the Northwest and commuted in to Birmingham, but stayed over probably 2 or 3 times a week, and then got home to see the family as and when I could, and he was like, "It's unacceptable, you need to move." And I was like, "I'll move in January with the family, but for now, I'll just keep on jumping back and forth." And he was like, "Yeah, yeah, no problem. With if we play in the Northwest, you don't have to ask to come home. You just make your own way, and I know you're going home." Anyway, we played Man City away. We got beat 4-1, and loads of the lads got off into Manchester after the game to have a night out, or go and do their own thing. And then we came in on Monday morning, and he was fuming. He was like, "You all owe me an apology." And Emil Heskey and Brad Friedel were the same as me. He said to them, like, "You can make your own way as well," because they lived in the Northwest. Anyway, he stood there and he basically said to me, "You need to apologize." I said, I don't need to apologize." I said, "You told me I could go home whenever I wanted to after the game." He's like, "No, I didn't. You're a liar." So he's like, "You need to apologize." And I was like, "I ain't apologizing for that." And I lost my head with him because I was like, "You're a liar." Yeah, I came in the next day and, Chef, the kit man,
yeah.
he pulled me the next day. He was waiting for me as I walked in. He went, I don't wanna do this," he said, "but he's told me I've gotta do it." He went, "Your name's been taken down on the locker and you're in the under 21s. You're in the reserve changing room." And I was just like, "What?" And he was like, "Yeah." And then that was me done. I got bombed out.
What about the other lads?
"What do you mean?"
Like, so there's not just you. Were you bummed out
Well, they
because of your reaction or because of the fact that you'd gone home?
no, no, he because I wouldn't apologize, he was like, that was it. Brad and Emil just walked off, didn't say anything because he'd said, like, they could go home. Then the rest of the lads apologized, and I said, "Well, I'm not apologizing for something when I don't have to because you've already told me that." And listen, I was pissed off anyway because I gave a penalty away in the game. I think I scored a goal, gave a penalty away. We got beat 4-1, and I was like, I was fed up anyway, like, just pissed off with the result. And then he comes in doing that, and I just lost my head. But he never gave me the chance to rectify it and say, like, "Let's sit down like men and talk about this and be honest about it." It was like he just would not speak to me after it. And I just thought, weird. But he
Yeah.
bombed a few people out. He ended up bombing a few out.
So
Um,
let's have a little conversation about that then, like, because when I came to Villa, obviously Alec McLeish was in, and that was you resurrected. Then you were back in, and you were an important part of the club.
that was the season
The
after
season
Gerard
after that,
Houllier.
that was when my first year at the club, and you were really important, fantastic in and around the place. And it's from I couldn't believe that you'd been bombed out, and then the following year, new manager Paul Lambert comes in. You had a great pre-season. You played in the games. You were fantastic, and then out of nowhere, through no fault of your own, nothing you've done, you're bombed out again. You're in the bomb squad again. So how we start to hear that, don't we, in the media? The bomb squad. These players are not required by the club,
Yeah,
and they're made to feel like second-class citizens. They make it as uncomfortable as possible to try and move them on. It may be because the manager doesn't fancy them. It may be because the owner wants to get them off the payroll.
yeah.
Whatever it might be, How does that affect you as an individual? How does that
Oh,
affect you as a person?
that was the hardest. Well, them 2 seasons were the hardest, um, because when I got bombed out by Gerard Houllier, bearing in mind, I'd just played against. Well, I've got the shirt there behind me. So
Right,
England
yeah.
versus France, that was 2010. We'd come back from the World Cup. That was November, I believe. So I was in the England squad. I just played against France. I came on as sub for about something like 12 minutes or 20 minutes. I don't know how long it was. Anyway, so I'm playing well. I'm a good player. And I swear it was a couple of weeks after that. It might have been December time that I got bombed out. So now I've got 6 months. Well, I say 6 months. I nearly went back to Liverpool in the January. So I've been bombed out for about a month. And then Kenny Dalglish was manager at Liverpool. And he rang Houllier and said, listen, I want Stephen to come on loan. And I was going to Liverpool. And it was all sorted, all agreed. And bearing in mind, Houllier didn't tell me this. It was Gary McAllister who pulled me. He was the one who pulled me. Houllier didn't even have the decency to pull me about it and said, listen, everything's been agreed. You can go to Liverpool. It's like Gary said to me, he was like, I made up for you. It's the right thing for you. You need to go back. And
Just to explain to people who don't know, Gary McAllister is at that time
sorry, yeah,
assistant manager of
assistant
Aston
manager.
Villa. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's assistant manager. So he's been my manager at Coventry. So he's like, get yourself sorted and good luck. And then all of a sudden, Aston Villa decide that they want a loan fee for me. And I'd said to my agent, listen, I'll take half my wages. I don't care. I just want to go back and play football. Don't care what I'm on. Just let me go. And they wanted some, like, I think it was like about, at the time it was about 500,000 for the rest of the season on a loan deal. But then it would have been turned into a permanent if both parties were happy. And Liverpool refused to pay it because they changed the deal at the last moment as it was about to get done. So I ended up going from thinking I was going back to Liverpool to being in limbo, and I literally trained with the reserves for the rest of the year, and that was absolutely brutal. To go from being a full England international who's just been to a World Cup, played the first half of the season in the Premier League, to being completely bombed out was horrendous. And the amount of times that I tried to sort the situation out with the club and with the manager, and he just didn't care. He just didn't want to entertain it at all. And I was just like, this is a nightmare. So come the summer, anyway, he ends up leaving through illness and Alex McLeish comes in. Like you say, I was made up. I was happy to stay at the club because Alex came in and just said, listen, I love you as a player. I want you. You're going to play for me. He was just like, get yourself fit, get yourself ready for the season ahead. And it was just music to my ears. So I played that full season. It was a very difficult season because obviously his connections with Birmingham and things didn't work out. And then Paul Lambert got the job. And interestingly, our last game of the season for Villa was away at Norwich. And I'd been playing centre midfield because Stilian Petrov had been ill. And we literally didn't have anyone else to play in there. And I played there for Blackburn. I played there for Coventry. So I end up playing centre mid. Last game of the season, we've all got our flip-flops on. No one really cares about the game because we'd have a bit of a shocker of a season. We were safe. We couldn't really go anywhere. And I played okay in the game. Didn't play great. And then I got a phone call. I was on a cruise with my family at the time, my ex-wife and the kids. And I got a phone call saying, Paul Lambert's got the job. He doesn't want you. Now, I'd been offered a new contract by the owner in the summer before Paul Lambert had come in. And then he said, yeah, that's off the table now. So I'd gone from signing a new 3 or 4 year contract, walking away in the summer going like, I'll sign that when I get home, to absolutely being told I'm not going in. And like you say there, I had an unbelievable pre-season. Thought, I'm going to prove him wrong here. I'm going to show him I'm a good player. And I don't know if you remember it, all he kept on talking about was my attitude to everyone. and how
Remember it. I
I
remember it.
was proving
Yeah.
everyone wrong, and that's the way to go about things. And I remember thinking, "Fucking hell, I've done this." And honestly, I was dead proud of myself because I thought it's not easy to change a manager's opinion on you because I've fucking gone through it. And then last pre-season game, we played Nottingham Forest away, and we were jet lagged coming back from America.
Back from Portland, weren't we?
Yeah, yeah. Come back from there, and then got called into the office the couple of days after, and went. And he literally, the words were, "Right, that's you done." And I was like, "What?" And he was like, "Yeah, you're done. You're not playing for us. I told you that in the summer." And I was like, "You're fucking kidding, aren't you?" And he was like, "No." And I was like, you've literally bigged me up all pre-season and then dropped me like a stone." I was like, "I'd have got out. I'd have left the football club, but I thought I'd changed your mind. And the way that you were talking to me," I said, "you've literally used me all the way through pre-season here." I said, "You've just kidded me on." Um, And then, yeah, I ended up in the same situation where I was bombed out again. But the thing was, that was even harder because without being disrespectful to the players that were bought in, I was better than them. I was better than them players and I knew it. And so did he. And whether it was from the owner, I don't know. But from what I was told later on was that he had to reduce the wage bill. Well, that's not my fault.
No.
That's not my issue. Don't treat me like a mug, though, because the thing is, he didn't reduce the wage bill because I didn't go anywhere, because he didn't allow me to go anywhere. So he may as well have just used me anyway, because I was better than what they had. And that really pissed me off because the other thing was, I knew how difficult it was going to be because I'd gone through it already when Julio was there.
Yeah.
And the second time, it absolutely broke me. I
I
just
mean,
wanted to give up. I just wanted to quit footy completely.
I can remember that time. And I as th there's a few that were getting bombed out, and there was yourself, and it was like, I'd get called into the manager's office on a Friday morning at 10:15 and was starting training at 10:30, and he'd say, "I don't wanna train with X, Y, and Z. You can take them, but keep them away from me. Get them as
Yeah.
far away from me as possible. Run them." Then afterwards, how were they? They were great because 'cause they're professionals, because their attitude is unbelievable, but what we're doing is wrong, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, through no fault of anyone's own, you were magnificent throughout that preseason. You're dead right. At the end of training, pointing the finger at you, saying how great you are as a standard to the young players, you know, the
Yeah.
Chris Hurds and the Nathan Bakers. Watch what he does, do what he does, blah de blah. And then getting the rug pulled out of you. It was it was wrong. It was wrong,
Yeah.
and, you know,
Massively. Yeah, yeah. Well, I always just think, do you know what the big thing is? The best managers I've ever played for have been honest,
yeah, yeah,
and it's all you want from a manager. He was a snake, an absolute snake, the way he went about things. He was a coward, Paul Lambert, the way he went about it. I've got no time for him. I ended up working with him years ago, and I barely spoke to him. And Colin
well,
Murray I was on air. Paul Lambert, I ended up working with him on a Champions League show for DAZN.
right,
I wanted to kill him, but I thought, "Do you know what? I'm in a new career here. I'm not causing an issue because it's going to be a problem for me later on in my career or very quickly." So I thought I'll be the bigger person about it. I wanted to kill him. I hated him. Just didn't have any time for him. I was dead blunt with him on air. And Colin was like, "Do you not get on with him?" And I told him the story, and he was like, "I'd have never have got him on if I knew that was the case." And I went, "Listen, it is what it is." I said, "It's part and parcel. I'm going to end up with working with people who I don't like, but I'll be professional about it." Yeah, I got no time for people like that. No time at all. I respect people who are honest with you because, listen, you're not going to get on with everyone and you're not going to please everyone. You're not going to be everyone's cup of tea. And that's part and parcel of football. But you've got to learn to be a man and be honest and front up to it. And he never did that. Because even when I asked him later on, it was like, "Why did you get rid of, why were you treat me like that?" He never gave me an answer. But honestly, mate, that was one of the hardest times of my career.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
I say, wanted to quit. And the thing is, I always I've said this before where I was like, did I enjoy my time at Villa? Like, I hated bits of it, but I loved other parts of it. I love the football club. The club's massive, it's huge, it's an honour to play for them. The lads were brilliant, but when I say I hated it, I didn't hate the club, I hated him,
Yeah.
and I hated
Yeah.
Gerard Houllier for
Yeah.
the way they treated us.
And what
Didn't
had
treat us
happened?
like human beings. They
Yeah.
treated us like pieces of meat, and I was just like, "That's unacceptable." So whenever I talk to people now or meet people, I try and treat them with the respect that they deserve, because we've all been, or we've all got to the top of our industry by working hard. And you've got to show that person respect for getting there, whether you agree with them, whether you like them or not. You try and be respectful to them.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then I want to sort of bring that. So we've talked about you had good times and tough times. I want to sort of move into a little bit of a difficult area for certain people to talk about, but it's an important one and one that you've been a real voice about for a number of years now, which is the issues around mental health in the game, um, and retirement. So one of the things that you've been really open and honest about was the challenges that you faced, um, after you retired.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that? And you know, do you think that what we've just spoken about there with the sort of fluctuations of being in and out of the team and that, do you think that that was part of the effect? When did you first start realizing that you were struggling a little bit?
I knew it when I was at Villa, definitely, because I could never lift myself after it. I never trusted anyone after that. Even when I went to Leeds, I uh, I found it very difficult to trust managers and to trust people because of the way I've been treated. But when I came out the game, I spoke about it before, was structure. Like I like structure in my life. I like to know where I'm going to be, what I'm going to be doing, because we're very regimented in football, or we were, what I was when I was playing. It's very much like a military operation. You get told where to be, what time to be, what to wear, what to eat. Um, and suddenly that disappeared. And I found things very difficult. And suddenly you're at home and you find life very difficult. I got divorced. I got separated from my ex, and that was my own fault. I hold my hands up to that, but I wasn't happy, and that's part and parcel of life. That happens. But I just found the not knowing of. I was in the industry of being in the media, but it wasn't the same. It wasn't the day to day. So if you think of my job now and you think of a typical week, I'll work on a Saturday and a Sunday because that's when Premier League games are on or when games are on, and then a Tuesday and a Wednesday.
Mhm.
So, but they're Tuesday and Wednesday evenings, and it might not be every Tuesday and Wednesday. It might be like a Tuesday evening or a Wednesday evening, or there might be nothing all week until the following week. So, how do you fill them 5 days? What are you filling them 5 days with? That was very, very difficult for me. But the other thing I love is I love a team environment. I love bouncing off people. I love being inspired or being pushed by other people. So even now when I go to like my local gym where we've got a gym around the corner from us, a live gym, I've got to know Kev and Rach, who the owners, dead well, is it's a proper community of people, a proper togetherness who push each other every day in the gym. And when I found that, that changed a lot for me because that gave me a drive to push me on, and it gave me a bit more routine. And I dip in and out of that now because I've learned to cope with it, like my routine a little bit better as I've understood it more. But yeah, I had counselling. I needed to go and speak to someone about it properly.
Did you? Yeah.
Yeah,
Did
yeah,
you? Did
yeah.
you?
I was in a bad way. I was in the point where I was just like, yeah, where you think about like you. Well, I knew I was going to end it and things like that. I thought about things like that where you think, um, yeah, things were that tough at the time where you go. I'm better off out of this, and there's an easy way to get away from it. And that was tough, and it was interesting. I bumped into who Kopi, who's like who looked after me and helped me. I saw him in a train station one night. I'd just come back from my brother's, and I was living in Liverpool on my own at the time. And I bumped into him, and we went for a drink, and we were just sat down having a drink, and he just said, "If you ever need a chat, let me know. I've been through what you're going through," because I was going through divorce at the time, or a separation. And he said, "I've been through all that." And the great thing was, it was that it was a different voice, and I felt like I could trust him. So when I was struggling, I rang him probably about 3 months later, and he went, "I've been waiting for you to call." He said, "I
Wow.
knew you needed me that night." He said, "But I couldn't say it." He said, "You had to realize it." And I remember saying to him, "Can we set up a chat?" and things like that. And I chatted to him for about an hour. And after that hour, probably even about 15 minutes in, I was like, "I'm going to be all right here." Like,
Wow.
just everything changed from chatting to him, and it was brilliant. And suddenly I started to see things differently and work out what I wanted to do and how I wanted things to go. And I used to look back on my career with like regret and think like I hadn't had a good career. I used to look at it and think, fucking hell, what a waste that was, because of those moments at Villa where I've been bombed out, um, and where you think you haven't quite fulfilled your potential. Because I always think like certain people had stopped me achieving that. But that's part and parcel of football. And there'd be so many people who look back on it. But if I actually look back on it now, I achieved so much in my career and played at a great level and things like that. But um, yeah, it was tough, very tough. But obviously, I'm not the only one who goes through it. A lot of people in life go through that. So that's why I thought it was important to speak up about it. But it comes with its problems as well, because your kids have to listen to it because you're a public figure
Yeah.
and people know you. They hear it and they get upset by it. So I had to sit down and talk to them about it and let them know how I felt and the way it was. And yeah, I think the other thing as well is it's a good thing to show vulnerability and to show that it is normal. Because if your kids bottle things up and they don't want to talk about it, then that's when they'll have issues as well.
Yeah. That's an important point, and it's incredible to hear that story, mate, that, you almost accidentally came across somebody that helped you through the tough times,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and if you hadn't coincidentally had that meeting at that point in time with that particular person, what might have happened. So what what do you think clubs need to do, or the PFA need to do, or somebody needs to do to help the players that are in the position that you were at that time, and to improve this situation?
Yeah, I think things are a little bit different now because I think players earn a hell of a lot more. So I remember this'll make you laugh. I used to sit on the table with Jason Roberts on the Blackburn bus, and JR was probably around about I'd say around about 32, maybe a little bit older when I was on the back of the bus. And I remember him saying to me, and it'll always stick with me this, he said, the one thing I'm worried about is at some point the checks will stop coming in. And he said, and that bank balance will start to get affected. He said, because we live a lifestyle now that is in accordance to what we get paid. And he said, and one day that'll stop. And I remember thinking, nah, I'll be all right. And you don't plan for it as well as you should. And I think there's an element where the PFA should be looking at it thinking, if you retire at 35, you should be going into another walk of life. So you should be retraining to do something else. And I think that's massively important, or at least looking at it with them, with players and saying, because I didn't get a phone call. No one spoke to me at all from anywhere about retiring. The only person that spoke, or the only people that spoke to me were the BBC to say that they'd like to offer me work. And that's why essentially I retired. but I didn't understand what retirement was going to look like. And the PFA didn't do anything, which was really disappointing because they're meant to be almost your governing body who protect you and advise you and point you in the right direction. And it almost felt like, and I don't know what the situation is now, but it almost felt like they just protect money and make sure that they don't hand out money, that
Right.
they want to have a big pot of money there. Um, Rather than saying to people, listen, we've got X amount of money. We want to help re-educate you. We want to put you into whatever you want to go and do, and we're going to help you find that. I was just very fortunate that I fell into the media the way I did. I've got no qualifications. I've got nothing. So I always think about it now as like, if I was to say something on air and get cancelled, what would I do tomorrow? I've got absolutely no idea because I probably s I probably could retire, but mentally I couldn't. I couldn't do it. I'd need something, and what would I do then? Um,
So
that'd be very difficult.
are you now preparing for that moment where perhaps the media career might end because people's media careers do end at some point? Are you now in a situation where you're thinking of, oh, okay, let's get ready for a rainy day. It's not raining yet, but it might rain one day.
100%.
Let's just get ready.
Yeah, yeah. I'm more mature about it, so I understand that you're gonna have to prepare for that. You're gonna have to look at it. Now, don't get me wrong. I look at it as well in another way and think, well, you've got to live. You've got to enjoy life as well. Um, so there is a very much an element of live for the day and get on with it. But there is an element of I fear it, but I think that that keeps driving me on to be better at what I do. The fear of losing it. I love what I do. Absolutely love it. I don't want to lose it. So there's that element of fear that keeps me going and keeps me pushing even harder, to make sure that I don't give my job up to someone else or lose it for saying something. I'm very
Yeah,
much aware of that.
you know, you're not into squad squad rotation with the commentary team.
Yeah,
I've
not
got
into that.
I've got the microphone and I'm keeping it. So I
Trying.
want to, I want to quickly just sort of wrap up on that because we've done the timeline and we're coming now to where we are now, where you are
Yeah,
now, and you transitioned out of being a player into the media, and you've mentioned the BBC just rang you up. So you remain one of the most recognizable people in the game because of the media work that you do, and you work for multiple different media outlets, and you're on
yeah.
the radio, you're on television. I mean, sometimes I can go weeks without speaking to you, but I feel like I spoke to you yesterday because I turned the telly on. I'm in Los
Yeah.
Angeles and like, Christ, Warney's on again. So how how just describe a little bit more detail how the transition came about. Was this something that you always had your eye on while you were playing? Because most people think about coaching, but did
Yeah.
you always have your eye on a media career, or did you just completely fall into it because the BBC rang you up one day?
No, do you know what's weird? I was at, I was at Wigan and I got offered I went for a meal with the chairman at the time, who was, David Sharp, who's like the grandson of Dave Whelan. And he was running the club and he said to me, "I want to give you a new contract." We got relegated from the championship, but he said, "I want you to be a player coach and I want to give you that opportunity now to progress and be at the club for many years." And I was like, 100%, sounds great to me. So I actually did my B license when I was at Wigan, and I enjoyed it to a certain degree, but I thought, do you know what? Once I get in and around the senior players, I'm going to really enjoy this. I'm going to love it. And he pulled the plug on it because they changed the manager and they decided to go down a different route. And I ended up leaving the football club that summer, which was really disappointing, to be honest with you, because I wanted to stay. I loved Wigan. It was close to home. It ticked all the boxes, and I thought, what an opportunity to get on the ladder of coaching. Um, so I left and I went to Burton. Things didn't work out at Burton. I wasn't happy. And then Bradford came in for me on loan, and I went back to Bradford. I'd started my career there on loan when I was younger, and I thought it was a nostalgic move. If I'm being completely honest, I thought it was something that I knew. I knew the club, and I thought I'll go back there. And when I was there, I got a phone call from my then agent, and he said, Five Live have asked if you would be interested in doing a radio show in Salford. So I said, yeah, why not? Give it a go. But I'd already done a few co-commentaries and a few shows for LFC TV in the past, and they'd asked me to do a few bits. So I'd done a bit of TV work before, but this was radio. So I went in, did the show. I think I was in there for an hour or two. And when I came out, they were like, we really enjoyed that. Like, we thought you were great. Would you be interested in coming back next week? So I was like, yeah, of course. I'll give it a go. Yeah. So went back the week after and really enjoyed it again. And then they used to have a show called Match of the Day 2 Extra, which was, it was, it was a show shown on Sunday morning, but it didn't have commentary. It didn't have footage. It was like a radio show, and Mark Chapman presented it. And I remember being on there, and I loved it. I thought, this is great. And I asked Simon Grayson, who was manager at the time at Bradford, if I could have the morning off because we were meant to train. And he was like, yeah, of course you can. It's fine. Anyway, I just kept on picking up all the jobs, and then they gave me a commentary job, and I did Manchester United versus Brighton. Um, and I absolutely loved it. I thought it was brilliant. Really enjoyed it. I was working with Ian Dennis, and Ian Dennis was or is a Bradford fan. And I was actually working with him at the weekend, and he said, I remember thinking, like, he made up to be working with a Bradford player. He was buzzing. So I was like laughing my head off. But yeah, I just started getting more and more interest from the Beeb. And then when I think it was around about April time, I got a phone call from one of the bosses at the BBC at the time, and he just said, have you thought about what you're going to do next year? And I'd just had a meeting with Greta Steinston, who was at Fleetwood, and he'd offered me a coaching role with an option to play at Fleetwood. And it was basically the same offer that had been offered at Wigan, but it was, and when I got offered when I got a phone call from the BBC, it excited me more. And I
Right.
remember thinking, like, I'm better suited to this. I enjoy this more. But they just said, listen, we've got plenty of work for you. We think we can make it happen. And then I did a couple of shows, and then I got a phone call from one of the guys, Tim Thornton at Sky Sports. And he just said, would you be interested in coming on Sky Sports News? We think we've been listening to you on Five Live. We like you. Think you'd be a good fit. Anyway, I went into Sky Sports News, did a few shows, and then basically it ended up being every week. And things just started to snowball and just sort of fell into place. And I remember one of the bits of advice that I got from my dad was, take any job you can get. He said, whether you get paid for it or don't get paid for it. And he said, this is now your YTS of a new career. And he said, just learn on the job what you're good at, what you're not good at, and just try and work as hard as you can at it if that's what you want to do. So I did. I used to work for jobs, and I wasn't getting paid. I was out of pocket on some of them, but I realized, like, I was getting better
Yeah.
and progressing, and things were, but I was fascinated by it as well, and I just loved it. And then luckily for me, I know people will say, well, you haven't played it, you haven't won anything, you haven't done this, that, and the other. I know the game, and I think I can explain it quite well, and I can give a tactical look at it if you want that. I can look at it in different ways. So um yeah, that was the other thing, was just to realize what type of pundit you then wanted to become, and you find the route that you want to sort of navigate and go down. But yeah, so I just fell into it and loved it. It was great.
Brilliant. I just one last question, and then I want to get into some quick fire ones because we've been going on for a while. Do you ever feel conflicted given the conversation that we've had earlier today um, about what it's like to be a player and being in and out of the team and the mental health aspect, part of your job naturally as a commentator is to criticize and to provide a critique of and when players make mistakes, they make mistakes in front of millions of people. Um, and you know what it's like to be criticized as a player, and you know what it's like to be inside a dressing room. Do you ever feel in your job now in the media conflicted or in any way restricted in what you can and can't say because of that?
No, so I'll give you the reason why, and it's very simple. So you use the word criticize or critique. Mine is I give my opinion. So that's as simple as that. Now, whether my opinion is what people think or not, I can't change that. I'm only giving the opinion of what I see. And if people don't like that, I can't do anything about that. And I think that's where maturity comes, because if someone had said something about me when I was younger, I'd have probably been pretty pissed off about it. But I remember, obviously, people might know, but like me and you, we know James Milner. We know him well. We've both worked with him. Um, and I remember going in his box after one of the games at Anfield, which I'd worked on. And one of his family members said, "Hey, you, got a bone to pick with you." And I was like, "What?" And they were like, "You had a pop at James the other week." And Millie went, "Hang about. What did he say?" So he said, "You hadn't played well in a game." And he went, "What game was it?" So he was like, "Such and such." And he went, "Yeah, I fucking didn't play well in that game." So he's got every right to say that. He said, whether we're mates or not, he went, he's got to give his opinion because that's now his job. He said, he can't just say, oh, he played well when he didn't play well, because I'm actually doing my reputation even worse then by people going, well, he's obviously mates with him because he's not given an honest opinion about that. And I remember thinking, like, I'm glad he said it, because people do have to realize that it is only an opinion, but also as well, I never hang anyone out to dry. I'd never do that because I've been in that situation. I never want a manager to get sacked because I realize how hard it is. Now, there are times when I'll say it's going to be very difficult for this manager to turn things around, and maybe a change might be at the right time because the way things are looking. But I'd never say he should be sacked or whatever. I hope no one pulls me up on where I've said that, but I don't think I have. But yeah, I think that's the big thing is that I only say what I see and try and be honest.
Yeah, it comes back to that word that you've used throughout this conversation, honesty, which
Yeah,
unfortunately we both know there isn't a lot about in football
no,
sometimes, isn't there?
not at all.
But and then you're coming to the US to cover the World Cup this summer.
Yeah, which
Uh,
is going to be great.
what are you looking forward to about that? What are you anything? Obviously the football, but anything, any particular games you're looking forward to, or any particular what interests you most about this World Cup? Because I think it's going to be different.
Yeah, well, to be honest with you, I am I'm a bit of a geek in terms of stadiums. I love going to new stadiums and I love seeing like what commentary position we're going to be in and what things are going to look like. I love the buzz around the stadium beforehand. I think it's completely different when you go to international games as well, because the feeling is like no other. And it's the biggest stage in the world. I mean, I've been lucky enough to go as a player to the World Cup. I know I never played in it, but I was part of the squad, and you feel that pressure. And I feel the pressure going to a World Cup as a pundit or as a co-commentator, and I can't wait for it because I feel like I'm better suited to it now because of how hard I've worked to get there, and I feel like I'm ready for it. So that side of things, also as well, like, this is the biggest World Cup that has ever been hosted. It's over 3 continents. So, fortunately for me, I'll be going to Canada and America. Sadly, I won't make Mexico. At this moment, it's not on my schedule. So, to go and visit different countries, cultures, different states in America, I think is gonna be fascinating. The thing is, a lot of my time is gonna be spent on a plane, in a stadium, on a plane, in a stadium, and that's gonna be part and parcel of it. But seeing different styles of football. Can't wait. Seeing
Yeah.
different players, seeing someone new who you haven't seen before. Yeah, can't wait.
These aren't my words. These came out of an article that I read about
I thought you were
you
going to say about a cracker out of a cracker.
accidentally, and it was the top 10 football pundits, and I was thinking, I wonder if my mate's on here. And the blurb underneath said, "The best prepared co-commentator." So you obviously
Right.
do your homework. So you might be traveling around America a lot, mate, but you're not gonna see outside of that hotel room much, because I know you. You'll be doing your preparation for the teams on the game that you're doing the day after.
Yeah. Do you know what's the interesting thing is like a lot of people say that to me. Um, my preparation is watching games. So when I worked with, I was working with Ian Dennis on a game like years down the line after we first worked together. And I used to spend like 2, 3 hours doing like going through me stats and finding everything out and like ready for it. And one day he went, "Go ask you." He went, "What the fuck's in that book?" So I was like, "They're all my stats, they're all my numbers and all things like that. So if a player scores, I know how." He went, he showed me his book. He went, "That's my job." So I was like, "Oh, right. Well, what's my job then?" And he went, "I'll make it easy for you." And he said, "And this'll help you." And it has. It's been the best advice I ever got. He said, "Your job is to tell me what's going on the pitch and why it's going on. So tactically, what's going on, what the team can do to prevent it, what they can change." Um, he said, "Also take me into the minds of the players." He said, "Because I can't do that because I've never been one." He said, "Take me into the changing room before, after the game, and at half time because I can't do that. Tell me what a manager might be saying." He said, "Because I can't tell you that, and I can't tell the audience that." He said, he said, "You lean on all your experience of being on that pitch because we haven't been on it." And
Brilliant.
I remember thinking, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
That's the job of a co-commentator. And it
Yeah.
was the best advice I ever got. And it made my life easier because now I watch games and I don't make loads of notes. I just watch systems, formations. I see what teams do well, what they don't do well, what teams might be able to hurt them. And that just stays in here. And then I just lean on it in games. So my 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 work or my homework is just watching footy games. How good's that?
It's not a hard life, is it? Right, I want to wrap up with quick fire
Right.
question.
Oh,
'Cause
right, okay.
right, and this is one word answer. All right,
Oh,
this is one word answer. So I'm going to hold you to this one word answer. Okay,
okay.
quick fire questions. Best player that you've played with?
Uh, yeah, but you're only giving me one word, and there's different reasons for a couple.
You can pick one, Stephen. This is I'm hosting today. You
Okay.
can.
I'd have to say Rooney then.
Right. Best player you've played against?
Ronaldo.
Two not bad names. Favorite manager you've played under? Not
Big
necessarily
Sam.
Big Sam. Favorite stadium to play in?
Anfield.
Favorite stadium to commentate in?
The Tottenham Hotspur Stadium.
Wow.
Best food.
Always thinking, so do they have cherry coke by any chance? I think
They
probably
don't
they
know,
do.
but
Well,
hopefully
there
they'll
you
get it
go.
in.
There
Yeah.
you go. If you're listening, Tottenham, that's where you're going wrong. Uh, you can play one game again from your career. Just replay. Score remains the same, performance remains the same, everything remains the same. What's the game?
Bayer Leverkusen versus Liverpool on the run up to the Champions League final in Istanbul. We won the game 3-1 on the night, but it was probably my best performance in the Liverpool shirt.
Final question. If you could speak to your 18-year-old self, what would you say to him?
Uh, oh, work on your mental side of your life because it's the most important thing. Like when I think about it, you train your body, don't you, to be fit and strong. but we never train our brains to be able to deal with everything that comes with it. So the pressures and things like that. And I've learned that through time and through experience and bad experiences, good experiences. If I could, and one of the things we've had him on the podcast, Jamil. If I'd have worked with Jamil when I went to Aston Villa for longer, I worked with him for a little bit. If I'd have worked with him for longer, I'd have stayed at the club for longer and done better. Or I'd have got a move somewhere else and continued to do better. And I disrespected that side of the sport and the psychology that comes into it. So if I'd have dealt with that side of things better, I think my career would have been better. If I'd go as far to say, if I'd have worked with Jamil at Liverpool when I was a kid, I think I'd have stayed at Liverpool longer. I think it's that important.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well,
work on the mental side of things better.
I think that is as good a way as any to wrap this podcast up. So I think that's been a brilliant conversation. It's gone on a bit longer than we thought, because when me and you get together, we do tend to talk a bit.
We do. I know.
But I hope that all of our listeners have got to know Stephen a little bit better. And yeah, that has been another episode of Strain on the Game.
Follow us on social media and YouTube at Strain on the Game. Subscribe, like, and follow.